All right. Well, thanks so much. I am so excited to go on today and have this live Q&A. I am sitting here. This is Jennifer Price with the Disability Media Network. I'm here with Megan Clancy as well as Caroline Parker Boyd, and both people are in the entertainment industry, and we are here to talk about all things disability inclusion related when it comes to media and entertainment. So thanks for joining us. I look forward to having this conversation. And I will go ahead and just start it off by giving quick bios, and then we'll just jump right in since we are running a little short on time. I will first ask, however, because we are jumping on about 7 minutes late according to my time, does everyone have a hard stop at 6:30? Or since we got started late, can everyone run over about 5 minutes late?
Sure, that's fine.
Okay. So I will first introduce Caroline. Caroline is the president and CEO of Parker Pictures, which is based out of Brooklyn, New York. She is a graduate of Columbia University and has a certificate in diversity and inclusion from Cornell University. Caroline is an epileptic entrepreneur, independent producer, and disability advocate who founded Parker Pictures because at the time she did not know of any disability owned or production companies owned by someone who has a disability. And having a disability has framed much of her experience in producing various films that I can't wait to get into. And we also have Megan Clancy, who is from Boston originally. She started acting in high school by being a part of Youth Scholars Program Quest for the Arts at Gallaudet University in Washington, D.C. She participated in plays and musicals in high school, which she enjoyed, but then deferred from the arts to pursue 2 science degrees, one from Gallaudet and the other from VCU School of Medicine. Upon returning to acting, she moved to Los Angeles, where she has been a guest on a talk show titled Rob Nelson Show in Los Angeles, and has since been pursuing various acting roles, including starring in Rad Scientist, which was recently screened at the Sign Light International Film Festival in Los Angeles, run by C.J. Jones. So I am so excited to have both of you on to talk about the media industry. So I'll just first.
The thing.
Yeah. You know what? Actually, also, let me give a description of myself. I am a Black woman. I have long hair, have on a navy blue short sleeve shirt with a red, white, and cream colored blazer. And so, my first question for both of you, either one can take it, is what exactly made you want to even get into the entertainment industry? You hear many things good and bad about it. So from your personal experience, why did you want to get into it? I'll start with Megan.
Okay, sure. For an image description, I'm a white woman. I wear glasses. I have long brown hair. I am currently wearing a headband. I have a short sleeve shirt. It's dark red in color. Has a slight V-neck swoop. And I'm wearing a red necklace. I am sitting with a background with a mirror behind me in frame. So thank you. Thank you for your question. Why did I get involved in entertainment? For storytelling purposes. I really enjoy storytelling. Probably during high school. That was probably where I was writing for the newspaper. And I thought that was very interesting. People's stories and stage performing. And I really did enjoy people's reactions. They really enjoyed these performances. They had the power to entertain. So I would leave rehearsals, practices, and with the youth program. And I remember the kids saying, wow, you have to rehearse every single day just for one show, just for one night. You have to do all of these rehearsals just for one night. And I remember, how much of a big commitment that was, and the agency work and things like that. So I really did love watching storytelling happening on stage and screen. So that would be my answer to that question. So I hope that answers it, and we'll pass it on to Caroline.
Yeah.
Um, just for image description, I am a white woman with curly brown hair. I have a white and black top with kind of pinstripes, and I'm sitting on a beige couch. So, what got me into filmmaking? Kind of my dad as a kid. I always like to tell the story of just like, which is stupid, but I was on vacation in Florida with my family, and early in the morning, my mom wanted to take us to the beach, beautiful day out. Then my dad turns on the TV for the weather, and then turns out Back to the Future was doing an entire marathon of all three. And, he was like, "I'm gonna stay inside and watch this." My mom was like, "No, you're not. We're going to the beach." And he said, "No, I'm staying inside to watch this." So I stayed inside and watched it with him, and we made a day of it, which was really great, and that was kind of our thing. Um, and sadly, he passed away when I was 10, and then, like, a few months later, I was diagnosed with epilepsy. So Parker Pictures is actually, his middle name and my middle name too, which is why I go by my full name. And, yeah, that's kinda what got me into movies. That was our thing. We like to watch a ton of films, and it really got me into the storytelling aspect, because I don't just make disability films, I just like a good story. I like seeing a story develop, and or if a story isn't working, how can what makes it better, you know? So that's what I like about film, because it can be collaborative. It has to be collaborative, otherwise it doesn't work, and there are so many ways to do that.
Yeah. So Caroline got to start off with tearjerkers.
Megan,
But
this is Megan speaking. That's really touching. That's just great. Mm-hmm.
yeah, I mean, talk about storytelling. I will say that I do remember going on your website and just learning more that one aspect that you will look into when it comes to film, or not films, but books or scripts, is what could, if it's already been made, how can it be made better, or what is the gem, as you called it, that you can really be expanded upon. So can you just talk a little bit more about that process that you have as a producer in finding the gems and then creating it from there?
So, um, for example, the script that, I was trying to sell at Sundance last year, and I tried to do it again this year too. I mean, we did it last year, but then, the writer's strike, and no one was buying anything. It was a script that was like, 140 pages, which is really long, and but it was a disability script written by an autistic woman, and I was very passionate about it, and road trip movie. I think we could really do something with it, and and it was funny. I mean, like, some things needed to be tweaked about it, and I was kind of packaging it together as something that could be made for very little money, and the story was working. I was having talks with the producer, my friend Justin, and then the writer had to take some, like, notes for me on, like, jokes and just, like, whether they land or not, and or what, or to add more. Sometimes it's just like humor doesn't, work. And I'm like an outsider, who isn't on the spectrum, so it's like, okay, I know how to, yeah, it's, you get what I'm saying. It's just like, it's one of those things. So, but I'm trying to make it a better story in general. Just really add dialogue. It's just adding good dialogue, little things like that to make the story work and develop the characters in a better way. And that's really what I was trying to do for that story. But I mean, like, yeah, it's that's just in the development process though. And yeah, that's the main one I've been trying to sell at the moment. But I have other projects that it's doing film festival stuff. But yeah, I would say in terms of like selling a project, it's really just making sure the characters are developed ahead of time and before you get anywhere near production. Because if they aren't developed, you're not going to get anywhere, and the project is not going to do well.
Yeah, no, that totally makes sense. I mean, Megan, for you as an actress, have there been times when you were casted in a role where your disability was a part of the character? And if so, in what way did you feel like you could sort of, did you have to advocate in order to better represent yourself as a deaf person in that role?
Yes, that's a really good question. It's funny because I actually auditioned for both. I auditioned for, regular jobs that don't include me as a deaf or hard of hearing person. And then I auditioned where I am being represented as myself as a deaf or hard of hearing person. So, it's really interesting. It just depends on the role and, kind of like with a hearing cover, if you will. I'm a deaf person playing a hearing person. I'm very flexible and I actually am willing to work in all different roles. I think as far as the Rad Scientist movie that you mentioned, we would sign things like satellite. And, that came up. You had talked a little about that with CJ Jones, you mentioned. And it's funny because the audience who was watching the Rad Scientist, they said that they really liked the film and that they feel that they, needed to see that. Because the Rad Scientists themselves, it was a cover. It was just a scientist who, helped people. There was no focus on the, pathological view of deafness or a person that is deaf using sign language. That was not the focus of the film. So, of course, for in general movies and TVs and advertisements, of course, I'd love to see more of that, more representation. Not just hiring people with disabilities for disability roles, but I would also like to see people with disabilities doing other roles where maybe that isn't the focus, because that can inspire the audience in a different way. So I really do think, I've really learned from those things. And I think the audience can really learn too, whether it be movie or TV, film or TV, not just only for myself, but for what the audience needs to see. For example, Troy from Coda, the movie Coda.
Oh, Troy.
Yeah, he was the actor, lead actor on that project. And, the lead character. And that was a very, very large project. And I'd love to see more film like that, where it's not necessarily focusing on the disability, but it was just these actors in the roles, and I think we're coming along. It's improving. It's getting better. I'm excited to see the things that are happening, compared to when I was little. I mean, when I was little, you didn't see people on the screen like myself. They were all hearing actors. Everybody was talking. Sometimes, you would have captions, sometimes not. But now we're seeing more of that. We're seeing more of these deaf individuals in these roles where, it's just for people that happen to be, in a wheelchair or maybe are perhaps blind. And we're seeing more representation happening compared to when I was young. And I'm really thankful. And that's a great question. And I really hope my answer wasn't too long.
No, and actually, I just want to piggyback off of that, talking about the movie Coda. I mean, has there been a sort of Coda effect, as I'm calling it, in the sense that, considering all of the awards that it received, has there been a different attitude in Hollywood? Or have you seen any sort of shift in Hollywood from an actress perspective Megan, and even from a producer perspective, Caroline, just in general, has the attitude in Hollywood changed towards people with disabilities in their casting?
I guess I'll go. I
Yeah,
attended.
I do think that, sorry, that I do think it's gotten better and it's definitely improving the process. And I think it'll continue to level the playing field. So I think it'll be great. I think it'll be more willing to hire people with disabilities, on the set. And just having it be, oh, here's a person who's a teacher and who happens to be in a wheelchair, or a doctor who happens to be dot dot dot. But that won't be the main focus. Not, oh, a poor person and with a disability. It's just going to be, these are now actors out there, getting jobs, and much like us. And I think we're going to see more of that in the signing world as well. And I think it's kind of like a weed, and it'll start to spread. And hopefully, from the movie Coda being the first movie, that had the burned in captions in it, and where, deaf people, they, could go to the movie. They didn't have to rely on the glasses, or, the reverse captioning screens, those weird, like those weird kind of plastic setup, and that's very awkward to try to watch a movie through. And I really hope in the future we can go ahead and just, click a button and there it is. Everything, we have everything. Captions are ready. They're all in it, and we don't have to worry about all these awkward devices. I'm looking forward to more movies like Coda, where the captions were in it on the big screen. They're just hard coded in there for all movies.
Yeah. Yeah, Caroline, did you want to add any more to that?
Yeah, I do. I do think casting wise, casting directors are being much more open about hiring. Casting directors are being more open about hiring disabled actors, but only if they're being given prompts by the directors that are or producers for particular projects. So if those casting directors aren't being given prompts for projects, how are they going to be cast for those roles? And I sat through a disability talk at Tribeca actually that felt 5 years too late. They referenced Coda so many times, saying it was a great. Honestly, I don't think it was a Best Picture movie, but it was a very good movie. I love Troy, like perfect performance. He deserves that. But it's just it's a film about a white family. We never see, like, BIPOC people with disabilities, and, like, it's, it was a really hard movie to make because no one had ever made a film like that before, and I give them 100% credit for it. But, I'm really not trying to put that film down, but nowadays, like, people are really trying to put a lot of emphasis on not adding people with disabilities as a side character, making them the main character. And those are the project and that's the problem with Coda, is that the disabled characters are the side characters. They're the supporting characters. The main character in that film is an able-bodied person. So we want these new stories coming out to be about disabled people, not non-disabled people. And the problem is these able-bodied people are writing content that is from the able-bodied perspective, about disabled people. I think a few years back, I had someone who wrote a character with who was epileptic, and she came to me for advice, like as an epilepsy consultant, which is stupid. I should get a writer credit for that, if I'm gonna be like giving you things like that, like little writer's notes. But I asked, why is the character epileptic? And she said, oh, I thought it'd be cool. It's like, why is it cool? Like, why is it relevant, to the story? And she's like, oh no, it seems interesting. I'm like, do you know anything about epilepsy? Do you know what it's like to experience it, like what the symptoms are, like what is having a seizure is like, like how it affects people. And she's like, oh, I know, I just like, I thought it'd be kind of like a cool thing to add to it. I'm just like, why is it there then? Like, why are you putting it there? It's, and the same thing happened too with that was even like 6 years ago. Actually, I have a friend who lives in Paris that I went to Columbia with, and I literally Instagram videoed her because her boss at Studio Canal I don't know if his wind thing is causing uh, stuff. Anyway, her boss at Studio Canal was trying to get a TV show going with an epileptic character, and it was the same deal. Like, I had to ask her, why is this character epileptic? You know, why are you making this character epileptic if it's not moving the story forward? You know, if it's not relevant to the overall story arc of because it was a TV show, of the TV show, then why is it there? It's the same argument for like making a good story. Like, if it's not relevant, why is it there? You need to take it out of the equation. But yeah, that's what was really disappointing to me about this Tribeca talk that happened, like just this past month, is I was talking to my friend Ray Greenhow, who's a disabled filmmaker, and we were both really disappointed because we were there with Easter Seals Disability Film Challenge people, and they had like a get together on the rooftop after, and we were just like, wow, this is so outdated, and like they just didn't talk about all the issues that are happening today, like able-bodied people writing content. The best part was just like this amazing Lebanese guy who has cerebral palsy, and he's gay, and I'm really sad I'm forgetting his name, but he was in The Politician for a second, like Netflix show, and he just wrote a play for off Broadway, and I'm like, oh, fabulous! I'm really sad I didn't get to chat with him, but like we don't talk about they. This was the one thing that really threw both Ray and I for a loop, because Ray and I have a thing that is lacking in disability in general, is intersectionality. Okay, so that is sorely lacking in any type of disability talks. That's my problem with. It's not a problem with Coda. Coda was revolutionary for its time, but there's no intersectionality in that film. It's there's like, I'm bisexual, Ray is a lesbian, so and non-binary. So it's we are intersectional, but we're also not BIPOC people, so so it doesn't count as another thing, but there's no talk of being disabled and queer, there's no talk about it. And it's Disability Pride Month. I have my Apple Watch, I wear my little pride thing, and people are like, why, Pride Month's over? I'm like, no, it isn't. No, it isn't. So I wish the talk had been about intersectionality, and they had the wrong people talking on that panel. And I'm sorry I'm talking so much about this, but you can tell I'm very irate about it. And that is why, in terms of casting, the casting directors, they don't have a say. The directors and producers are the ones that are gonna cause the trickle down.
That's interesting. That's a really, really interesting perspective. All of it. I mean, there were so many gems, using your word. I totally agree that the topic of intersectionality is not talked about. I mean, as the founder of this streaming network, I try to be conscious of that and trying to get as much, or being intentional about seeking out content that does show some sort of intersectionality with disability, because all of it is just about the human experience in general. but it's interesting that you're talking about basically being a change being top down. It sounds like, from a director producer perspective, and then it trickles down to writers, actors, and so forth and so on. But along those lines, I mean, um, where do you see the landscape now? And then where do you see it going? I mean, do you see it even going in a different direction, or a more positive direction, a more inclusive direction, probably is the better word that I should use, when it comes to not just casting, but also authentic casting of showing people with disabilities in all spectrums? Because, you know, we're disabled and minority, or we're disabled and black, disabled and a part of LGBTQ, disabled and Hispanic. There's so many ands. So do you see that being a part of the future, or have you been a part of any discussions where people have been open to that and exploring that casting?
I am not. Go ahead, Meg.
Before I forget, you talked about intersectionality and people with disabilities and dot 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 or plus. I know that Netflix, I think it's working with like a foundation. It's called Invisible, and they were looking for disabled writers and producers. The foundation itself was funding their work and really trying to find people. And so, that was good to mention that I did notice that on Netflix. Again, the Netflix Foundation, they were really trying to do some really good sponsorship to improve the process. Not perfect, but at least it's a good start. I just kind of learned that. So just for general information, just kind of my 2 cents on the topic.
Yeah, for sure.
I don't think I'd heard of that, so yeah, that's good to know. I'll definitely look into that after this call. Yeah.
Sure. Again, it's called Invisible. It's called the Invisible Foundation. You can look up their website.
Great. Yeah, so I'm sorry, I'm trying to remember the question.
Yeah, do you see it going in the direction of including the intersection, showing disabled people in
Great.
being in all the intersections?
Yes. So I have not been in the room per se about like moving forward yet. Ray and I might be working together on an intersectional project, kind of a web series she's developing, which would be really fun to work together on. She just shot a feature up in Vermont. I don't really know what that's about. She couldn't talk about it, but yeah. So she's based out of LA, so I'm gonna try and work with her a bit more. And but I do have high hopes. People, I don't know if anyone is a fan of this. I have been a fan since it came out in the early 2000s, which dates me so much because I watched it on TV, just in terms of my age. But I watched Avatar: The Last Airbender as a kid. Okay, you can look down on me all you want for watching an animated TV show and still watching it as an adult. That kid show looks at not just war but disability as not a crutch but as like an empowerment. It shows disability as something that is power. It doesn't hinder anyone. And the one of the main characters, Toph, is a blind, pardon the expression, badass. Like she's one of the most powerful characters in the entire show. And no one looks down at her. She makes jokes about being blind all the time. Like, oh, like someone holds a poster in front of her and she's just and says, what is this? And then she says, well, it sounds like a piece of paper, but I'm guessing what you mean is what's on the piece of paper. And it's just like little fun things like that. And it's just it's not making fun of it, but it's just like, oh, it's just the little quips about it just make it not seem like a big deal, but no one talks down to her about her disability, and it's seen as a powerful thing. I mention this because it recently got a live action reboot of the Avatar: Last Airbender. The first season did. Mixed reviews, yada yada, whatever. But the second season is when Toph comes in, and they're actually looking for a blind person to play Toph. And this is a show with like all forms of karate, jujitsu, whatever. It's like the whole point of, I forget which is which for like fire bending, earth bending, water bending, whatever. But yeah, so Toph is an earthbender, and it will be really cool. It's really great that they're actually trying to find a blind person for that role, an Asian blind person too. So they're that's amazing. That's a step forward for Netflix because they're the ones that are doing the reboot. I that is a huge thing that I've seen recently, and that was announced, I guess, a few months back. So, because I follow the One in Four Coalition on Instagram, and they're the ones that posted it just as like a little, step forward. Other than that, I mean, New Amsterdam has made some strides too. I've met a few of the actors on there and some regulars, but other than that, it's just like some indie films that it's been happening in more than anything else, and it's like indie films don't really make money. It's sad thing, but it is what it is. And it's yeah, studio I the Marvel era is kind of over, so it's just what do you do now? But I'm hoping that like I have heard of, that there is a resurgence coming because people are looking for original content again, and the streaming services are finally understanding that people want good content with new actors, and they're trying to find those great new people, the young actors coming up. And there are so many people with disabilities now that we didn't even think about, like neurodiversity and what have you, that you know now count. So it would be really great to get one of those things, like some things going like that. And there's also so many people interested in filmmaking too, like from Easter Seals as well, and anyone can pick up a camera. It's so easy now. So it's just whether you have that story and the little bit of means to make it happen.
So, do you have any final piece of advice as we close out here for anyone who is aspiring to get into the entertainment industry as either a producer or an acting?
Um, I will say this, and this is just someone who I didn't do production on this, but I co-produced a feature called Away that's doing the festival circuit right now, and we're actually screening at Festival Cinema NYC on August 3rd. Um, that film, my friend Derek made it for $10,000. Okay, and all he did was hire a amazing cinematographer, spent a week in Martinique, and it's because his friend lived there, stayed with him, shot some things in New York, and then has tons of extra footage from Martinique. And instead of shooting a short, he shot a feature. He went down there with an idea, a fragment of an idea, and moved it together. You can move mountains with just a little bit of help from your friends. It's about having that right team. You gotta have your right team, the right people around you, and then you can make the magic happen. So find your team, find your crew, and work together. Work on each other's projects and see what happens.
Yeah, that reminds me of a film that's on our platform, The Anxiety of Laughing, that was written by someone with um, cerebral palsy, and so sort of roughly based on his own personal experience. But he was a graduate of UC Riverside,
Mm.
and his professor ended up being the director of the film, and then his professor knew someone had a very, like, I think his best friend worked for Fujifilm, so Fujifilm was willing to donate the equipment. So yeah, I agree. So we were able to make it happen when he was like, yeah, how about that? And I was like, I don't have $1 million budget, and so it just like worked out because yeah, he had a great team around him that was able to pull it
Yeah.
off. So, yeah, that's a great point.
It's
Yeah.
that.
One thing I add, in this industry, it's not like, you don't get fast results. You know what I mean? It definitely is you can't give up. You have to be persistent.
Mhm.
You have to keep going. That would be my advice. You have to just keep doing what you're doing and be persistent, keep trying. Um, you're always going to have some highs and lows, ups and downs in this industry. So, if you wait, the industry is always in a hurry. So you can't wait, especially specifically for actors. As far as producer and producing ideas, like Caroline mentioned, and she's absolutely right as far as, the diversity, finding people with different backgrounds and write them into the script. Make the story happen. Don't just include it to include it, but make a story happen with it. There's a variety of experiences out there and disabilities out there, and again, that's why I really love that invisible platform concept, is because it's funding to help, to kind of make the dream become a reality. There are great opportunities out there. You just got to keep your eye on them.
Mhm. May I add one extra little tip for people too? Go network. Go find some event, some like nearby. I mean, I live in New York. There's so many of them, but there are film networking events that are free at bars or wherever. Like in every state. You just got to go find them. They take a little bit of effort. Go meet fellow filmmakers. It puts your name out there. Make a little business card for yourself for the free QR codes and keep it on your phone. And just, it's not selling yourself, but it's like pitching yourself. Make yourself known. Make yourself like available and authentic. Don't try to fake it till you make it, because that's just, everyone does that. It's like, yes, they fake it till you make it, but that's how like most people in LA are, and it's just, no, they care about authenticity. If you are authentic and present yourself as such, people care. You draw them in, and they will not want to let go. So go network and meet people and show them the real you. And then they will want to actually work with you.
That's such a great point. That's such a, that it
True.
which I think still goes back to the team.
Yeah, and again, back to who you know. Networking is
Yeah.
very important. Who you know, grow your team. So,
Mhm.
and thank you so much. Thank you for sharing your information today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much to everyone, both of you, for joining.
Mhm.
I do appreciate your time and reflection and just sharing all of your experiences and knowledge for anyone else who is interested in being in the industry.
Of course. Yeah.
Yeah, you're most welcome. Thank you so much for having us.
Yeah.
And for also the wonderful interpreter that provided interpretation today.
Yes, as well. I agree. Thank you so much for interpreting.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. So I'm going to